Hey everybody, John Skiba here, and if you're dealing with a debt collection lawsuit, you're probably thinking to yourself, this couldn't have come at a worst possible time. There's never a good time to be sued by a debt collector, but they always seem to hit right when it's going to cause the most pain. I'm going to tell you what, that is not by coincidence. In this video, I'm going to share with you what the credit reporting agencies, what the credit bureaus do that causes you to deal with such terrible timing when it comes to these debt collection lawsuits. But if this is your first time here to my YouTube channel, go ahead and click subscribe, check on that little bell. That way you'll be notified each and every week when I put out a new video that'll help you deal with your serious debt problem. All right, this past week I was reading through the Wall Street Journal, and there was an article on one of the big debt buyers that we see out there, Sherman Financial Group. Now, Sherman is the parent company to Resurgent Capital, LVNV Funding. Those names sound more familiar because they're the ones that actually file the lawsuits when they're doing collection activity. You may have seen letters. Like I said, lawsuits with LVNV Funding, Resurgent Capital does a lot of their collections. And the article is about Sherman Financial Group and how they kind of bucked the trend during this last year when we were dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. Most debt buyers, like Portfolio Recovery Associates, Encore Capital, also known as Midland Funding, they actually reduced the number of total lawsuits that they filed in this last year in response to the pandemic, which is a good thing. I think that most people realize this is a worldwide issue that we're all dealing with. The last thing that we need is another little, turn of the knife by throwing some debt collection lawsuit out at us. But Sherman Financial Group, LVNV Funding, they actually increased the number of lawsuits that they filed over the last year. The Wall Street Journal said that they were showing a 52% increase in the number of lawsuits that LVNV filed since the COVID pandemic started, inflicting its horrors across the world. So Sherman Financial kind of stood out in that fact that they didn't care. They were going forward. And as I read the article, they talked about Sherman Financial Group and how they become really this gigantic player in the debt buying business. And they talked about how they did it. And they did it through gathering data and using data to do their collections more efficiently. And that got me to digging a little bit further into what the credit reporting agencies, the credit bureaus, what do they do with the information that they have on you that helps collection lawsuits and helps debt buyers like LVNV Funding, Midland, Portfolio? What is it that they're doing with that information that's helping them so much? Now, something that a lot of people misunderstand about the credit reporting agencies is they act like they're some sort of quasi-governmental entity. And the reason is they impact everything. They impact your ability to rent an apartment, to buy a car, to buy a house, to get a credit card. They impact so much of our lives that we feel like that they're just this, this presence like the government. And so we kind of give them some of those characteristics or traits. The truth of it is they are private companies, and they are there to make a profit just like every other private company that's out there. And so with the information that they gather from the various lenders that that you use, your mortgage lender, your car lender, credit cards, information that you provide them, public records, they gather all that information and they compile it and they sell it to junk debt buyers like Sherman Financial, LVNV, Midland, Portfolio. They sell that information to them to allow them to do more high-tech collections. And so back to what I started this video with, you may be saying this lawsuit couldn't have come at a worse time. We're just getting ready to close on a house. Or I just bought a car and now I've got a car payment and now they're hitting me with this lawsuit. Or I just changed jobs. That's not a coincidence. They gather this information from the three credit bureaus through what are called trigger reports. Let me share with you some of the information that I pulled off of the three main credit reporting agencies, Equifax, Experian, and Transunion. These trigger reports that they sell to junk debt buyers. When we look at some of the information that they gather, they can alert these junk debt buyers if you pay an installment loan off. So if you pay your car payment off, all of a sudden they're figuring you have more money there, and those funds could be used to pay off a debt collector. If there's been a total balance change, if all the information on your credit report, if the total balance goes down, if there's been an employment change, address change, if your telephone number changes, they'll send out a notice to the junk debt buyers so that they can take that information and decide what they want to do with it. Transunion does the same thing. New credit inquiries and loans obtained, they report that to them. Increases in the ability to buy. So essentially you pay off some of your other credit cards. All of a sudden you're seeing this debt buyer come in thinking, you know what, this person probably has a little extra money to pay at the end of the month. We're going to go after them now. If they pay off any of their trade lines and just general, what they call changes in propensity to pay. And so they gather all this information and they put it into a report that they send to the debt buyer, and then they make a decision whether it is they're going to file suit, they're going to send you a collection letter, whatever it is that they're going to do. So it's become a very fine-tuned process for the credit bureaus in using your information against you. They're selling it to these parties to use against you. So the question is, what can you do about it? And the answer is a little bit disheartening because there's surprisingly not a whole lot you can do to limit how the credit bureaus use your information. And the reason is, you're not giving the credit bureaus permission to use your information. You're giving it to the banks and the credit card companies and the other lenders. That's what's in that fine print, is that you're saying if you have a mortgage, that your bank can report that information to the credit reporting agencies, which in general you want them to be able to do so you can increase your score and it shows better creditworthiness on your part. However, it's kind of a two-edged sword here, because they can also use that against you. They can take that information when things go bad, and then when things increase and get a little bit better, and sell that information to third parties. So unfortunately, the only way to limit that is to limit what your banks can provide, but that can also harm you on the backside. So the main thing is to be aware of this. Don't be surprised if you pay off a car loan, if there's some outstanding collection account there. That's when they may all of a sudden come to life and start doing collections. I always say, you know, you don't ever want to poke the sleeping bear. Sometimes poking the sleeping bear is just paying off another debt. And so you need to be aware that debt collectors are using very high-tech strategies when it comes to gathering and using information against you when it comes to dealing with it. That's why I hope that the information here on my channel is helpful. If you're dealing with a junk debt buyer lawsuit, some of the strategies we talk about on how to deal with them. So I hope that's helpful today as you're trying to deal with your debt problem and kind of understand why it is they're coming, when they're coming. And hopefully you can use that to your advantage as you gather more information and know best how to present a defense to what it is they're doing. Thanks for watching today.